And welcome to On the Ledge podcast, episode 140. It's Diva week. Yes, this is the week we'll be giving some RESPECT for those houseplants that are a little bit extra. And if you don't know how to keep them happy, they will turn up toes and die. And make you feel terrible in the process. The format for this week will be a little bit different than normal. Those of you who are regular listeners will remember back to Trailing Plants Week, and it's the same format. One short podcast every day. This time I'm only doing weekdays though, so there'll be today's episode and then 4 more on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday next week. Each one covering a different plant. And today's plant is Ficus lyrata, the fiddle leaf fig. Tiny bit of housekeeping before we begin. Thanks to Nancy and Ms. Holly for becoming Patreon subscribers this week, unlocking exclusive extra content. And a big thumbs up to Cal who wrote a lovely review of On the Ledge on Apple Podcasts, who says the show is relaxing to listen to while cleaning dishes, repotting and working from home. Thank you, Cal. It is great to have your support. And also just a quick reminder that Houseplant Hour, a whole hour of chat on Twitter about houseplants, takes place at 9 p.m. BST. And you can get involved by following the hashtag Houseplant Hour or following the @Houseplant Hour account. That way you can show off your plants, get advice and generally hang and shoot the breeze with fellow houseplant lovers. Right, on with Ficus lyrata. So why did I pick this as my first diva plant? Well, as I confess in the upcoming interview, this is not one of my favourite plants from the genus Ficus, but it is one that many of you grow and quite a few of you struggle with. So this is one that I really wanted to cover. I couldn't really offer a lot in the way of advice on this plant, not being a grower of it myself. So I turned to Plant Trekker of Instagram, who is a houseplant advisor and botanical influencer, aka Thomas from Belgium, for his expert advice.
So hi everybody, I'm Thomas. I'm a 29-year-old plant daddy from Antwerp, Belgium, and I'm currently living in an apartment with 1 boyfriend, 1 cat, and about 400 houseplants.
400. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
And the plant we're talking about today is one that's iconic, but also a little bit tricksy. A lot of people struggle with this plant, the fiddle leaf fig. Now, I asked you to pick a plant to talk about, and this is the one you went for. Why do you think it's up there as a diva plant?
Well, I think it's a diva plant in a way like Grisabella from Cats is a diva. So she's a bit like outshone. People don't really think about them that much anymore, actually. They used to be very popular in the 70s and the 80s. Then they plummeted for some reason. And now I think they're coming back. And they are gorgeous. They're actually, if you know how to do it, really easy to care for, as it's mostly the case. But they can give such a vibe to a room. They become really big. You can keep them small if you want. So you can do anything with them. And their leaves can be up to 30 centimeters big, 40 if you're really lucky. So they're like huge boas and glitter style. They remind me of like really divas actually. She's like the drag queen of the plant world.
That's good to hear. I have never grown one. I'm going to be honest with you, Thomas. It's not my favourite of the genus. It's probably my least favourite of the genus. I don't know what it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm really not that keen. There's something about the leaf. Occasionally a leaf will freak me out. And there's something about those leaves that I don't really like. And I can't explain why. But I appreciate, however, that lots of people do love this plant. And they're desperate for your tips as to how to get this plant growing well. So light seems to be a big issue with this plant. It needs quite a lot of light. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right. They do need quite a lot of light. But they're not too fond of constant direct light. So, for example, the afternoon sun can be a bit too harsh for them. for example, my plant, I had it in my plant room, which is north window, constantly lots of light, but only indirect light. And it was growing at extremely slow rate. We're talking like one leaf a year, which is really slow for them, of course, because lack of light makes them underdeveloped leaves. But if, like I recently moved it to the sunshine, and so now she gets about 6 hours of direct light, and she is booming like crazy. So they love direct light, but like the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock sun, if it's really hot behind the south-facing window, that's too much for them. That'll burn the leaves for sure in the beginning. They can adjust to it and can adapt to it, but it takes some time for them to do that.
Those are two really good points. The really significant points there, I think, that you've made are that sun at 1 and 2 in the afternoon is different from sun at 9 a.m., isn't it? I think lots of people don't understand that. That midday sun is just so much more powerful, and therefore a plant that can take a couple of hours in the morning in an east-facing window, is not necessarily going to be happy at 2 o'clock being blasted. And then secondly, I think the fact that it's you've got to get the plant used to the level of light. You can't just take it from a dark corner and then put it in the sunlight. You've got to gradually move it. So if somebody thinks they've got their plant in the wrong place, maybe gradually kind of introducing it to a sunnier spot is wise?
That is indeed wiser. It's like if it's springtime and the sun is slowly coming out, then you can just put it in a future sunny spot and let it adapt. But if you take it home, for example, a garden center where usually the light is very well filtered, and you put it in the direct sun afterwards, it'll be too much. And the leaves that are already grown in a shadier spot will start to get burn marks. So if that's the case, for example, if you have a south-facing window, put it by like on the corner and just slowly, like every day, move it a little bit towards the sun so it can adapt to that sort of lighting. We're in Belgium, and the summers aren't always that hot, that sunny. So you can, for example, here you can easily adjust. I think UK is probably the same. Sun is a bit more cloudy days in the summer, so that should be okay actually. If they've always grown in a sunny spot, they'll probably be fine. But they need time to adapt. That's always very important.
So if you were talking about getting different shapes and forms out of this one species, how do you go about doing that? I know you can buy the Bambino form, but if you've got a really big sprawling one, pruning, I guess this time of year is a good time to tackle it.
Oh my God, these guys love to be pruned. If you prune them, it's amazing because if you buy a Bambino, they're usually just like one stem, lots of leaves, and it's gorgeous and beautiful. If you keep it like that at home, you don't prune it at all, it'll usually just stay one stem for quite a long time. We're talking like up to 1 meter, 2 meters. It'll just be one stem. However, if you cut off, especially in springtime, if you cut off the top part, then usually when you cut out the top part, which you can propagate, by the way, there will always form 2 or 3 branches even. So slowly you will get like a tree shape. So if you don't prune them, they usually stay one, let's say, conic plant. If you prune them, 2 or 3 branches, like a real tree will begin to form. So that's really amazing. Let's say you have a really big one and you're like, oh my God, my living room is too small. I can't let it get any bigger until we move or until I get like a huge greenhouse or whatever. Put it in a darker place because when they receive less light, they will grow really slowly. They'll still survive. It's okay. But they need lots of light to actually start growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And one thing you also see in garden centers is the Ficus lyrata or fiddle leaf stick. And the bottom trunks are completely naked, completely barren. Those are actually often rather expensive plants just because their bottom stem is naked, because they're older. So the leaves at the base have already fallen off. It really gives you an idea of like how it can be as a real tree. That's lovely. You can get the same thing at home if you just let it grow and grow older. So these plants can really last a lifetime in your house. It's amazing.
That sounds good. And one of the things I've seen people do, which I understand doesn't work, is take a single leaf and try rooting that. And while it roots, it doesn't form anything other than you don't get further than a leaf. You need a stem to get that. Is that right?
You do need a stem. It's rather easy to let the leaves get roots. And I've known a few people who were successful getting a plant out of it, but it's like 1 in 100. So it is really hard. It's easier always to just cut off a little bit of the stem, and you need that stem part. That's where all the good things are, let's say like that. So when you propagate it, use the stem, because if you cut off the top, make sure you cut the top of the stem as well, not just the leaf, but give it some really grow out of. So also, if you put them in water, make sure they can float in water because they're really big leaves. They're also really heavy. And if the stem is pressed against the bottom of the vase or the bowl, whatever, it's harder for the roots to come out. So always make sure they float a little bit, like just a centimeter. That's, everything I propagate is always floating in the air just to make sure that the roots have a place to go.
That's a good tip.
It's a really small detail, but it really helps. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And what about watering? Do they have any special requirements? Is it sort of the usual thing of, you're more likely to kill them from over than under watering and leaving too much water around those roots?
Well, I always say, if you're doubting, should I water or not? Don't water at all, because it's easier to... These guys usually, if they're in a sunny spot, water them once a week. However, they're very prone to overwatering. So when they get too much water too fast, they will start developing... I'm not sure about the word in English. Edema. So these massive leaves are very prone to that. So what happens is the small cells in the leaves will just burst open, leave like tiny brown scars. They'll never really go away. It's very you can find it very easily in new leaves. Of course, when the leaves get bigger, the cells stay equally small, so you don't spot them that easily. But they're extremely prone to that. So when watering, I always advise.
That's really interesting because I've seen those people commenting about the brown spots on fiddle leaf figs. And because I've not had them before, I had kind of crossed my mind about edema, but I hadn't quite literally connected the dots that was the cause of it. But that's really, because you always see that, don't you? When you look at plants for sale, there's always those brown spots. And of course, it's edema. You've solved a little mystery for me there. That's great. That's really useful to know.
Now, it's always better to just water them once a week instead of a little bit of water every other day. Just give them like a huge bucket of water. Well, not a bucket, depends on the size. But like half a bottle of water every week when it's winter time, or even every other 2 weeks. And in summertime, every week a lot of water definitely, because they have big leaves. Water evaporates really easily, so they need their water for sure. Yeah. The soil can be dry between waterings, but never like completely dry to the bone. That's too much then.
And feeding, presumably, is the usual thing. When they're growing, you're feeding.
They're extremely hungry. So growing seasons, spring and summertime, of course. They actually I feed them every single week.
Yeah.
My other plants usually it's about every 2 or 3 weeks. But these guys every single week, and they love it. They just keep on. For example, mine has been in the sunny spot now for 2 weeks. He's got 3 new leaves. And just keeps on growing. It's immense. They grow so fast when you feed them. So I feed them every week now. It's bonkers.
And finally, spider mites seem to be an issue with this plant. And I guess sometimes people mistake those edema spots for spider mite. But
yes, so often.
What do we need to look for with spider mite and the Ficus lyrata?
First sign is like the little white cobwebs. If you see those, if it's just one on the bottom, it could be just a normal house spider having a bit of fun there. If they're more on top, then it's usually spider mites. Second thing is if you see like these little small clusters of white fuzzy things, and you touch them and they spread out, that's usually spider mites in the basic stage. So if you see anything like that, make sure to actually just spray them off your plant. Put it in the shower, put it in the bathtub, get the blaster on it, shower head, and just spray it off.
It's one of those things where I think people think they can just spray it once and then it's gone away, whereas you do need to repeat, I find.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So it's like, I've just sprayed it, so the problem's gone. But no.
It's like a good shampoo. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. That's always the best thing with those things. Other than that, they're also rather prone to mealybugs, actually.
Okay.
I've had it quite a few times as well. But then the easiest thing, well, for me, it's not really... environmental friendly, but just take some rubbing alcohol or nail polish remover on a Q-tip and just dot them, and they're gone. That's people say it's really sad for them. I'm like, yeah, but they're bugs. So
well, I mean, if anyone wants to start a Save the Mealybug campaign, they can, but I'm not joining that campaign. That's for sure. Well,
likewise,
Thomas. So that is a really great summary. Is there anything else we've missed about this plant that we need to mention before I go?
Actually, maybe one thing, because they have really immense leaves. You need to take care of those as well. So once a month, you should dust them. Take a damp cloth, go over it, and that's good to go. Because when the leaf is blocked, it's harder for them to photosynthesize. And also, I spray mine with an organic leaf spray every 2 weeks as well. They stay nice and shiny. So the big plant stands there radiating like a diva.
Well, thank you so much, Thomas. That is a great summary. And I hope everyone's going to be able to have extra glorious fiddle leaf figs now as a result of your expert advice. Thank you so much.
You're ever so welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, let's see your fiddle leaf figs. If you've got a fine looking fiddle leaf, send me a photo on theledgepodcast@gmail.com. And those of you whose divas are misbehaving, I hope this will help get them back in full fig, if I may say so. Thanks so much to Thomas, aka Plant Trekker, for offering up his advice. Check out the show notes for links to his Insta and a summary of his Ficus lyrata tips. That's all for this mini episode. I will be back on Monday to talk about begonia vine, that's Cissus discolor. Until then, enjoy your plants. Bye! The music you heard in this episode was Roll Jordan Roll by the Joy Drops and Whistle by Benjamin Banger, both licensed under Creative Commons. See janeperrone.com for details.